I have with me here Gene Ching. He's a 32nd generation layman disciple of the original Shaolin Temple and was publisher of Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine. He's authored hundreds of martial arts articles and scripts for martial arts instructional videos. He's the author of the book Shaolin Trips, and he's also writes for Den of Geek, Kung Fu magazine. He's also served as weapons expert on El Rey Network's Man-at-Arms, The Art of War with Danny Trejo. This was in 2017 and 2018. And he's been a longtime friend and collaborator. Welcome, Gene, to the inaugural episode of Tiger Talk.
It's an honor to be on your first episode. Man, it's kind of different. I mean, after sharing an office for over 20 years and seeing you across the room, and now seeing you on Zoom. What a world we're in nowadays, right?
I know all of my best friends are two-dimensional now. What can I say? But you'll recall that I once wrote a column titled Tiger Talk, and it was in the back pages of Kung Fu magazine. So here I am reviving it for the sake of Chinese New Year. It's Year of the Tiger, and I wanted to talk to you about how tigers relate to martial arts.
Well, I mean, it is Year of the Water Tiger, and it officially starts on February 1st. And one of the things I think people often get confused about when it comes to Chinese New Year is it's actually like a good 2 weeks worth of events, you know, as the moon, it's that phase of the moon. And so it starts with Spring Festival, and there's like every day there's rituals and things, but it sort of officially starts on the 1st, and then festivities go on for like 2 weeks, and each day has like different observations, kind of depending on what, you know, there's variations between different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I mean, now I guess the thing to call it is more to call it Lunar New Year's, since it affects all of Asian culture and the Asian diaspora. But it was really invented in China. The lunar calendar comes from China. So, you know, there you have it. I mean, the biggest variation you might see is in Vietnam, the sign of the rabbit is swapped out for the sign of the cat. But otherwise, things are pretty consistent across the board in terms of what it means.
Oh yeah, right? Like the tiger is also significant symbolically for martial arts, for Kung Fu, and that's kind of, you know, where I want to get your expertise, especially with regards to symbolism, because, you know, we've had many talks not just about martial arts, but like the symbolism behind such things. And
For sure. And, you know, it's actually not just Chinese martial arts, but it's very prominent in karate. It's the symbol of Shotokan. You'll find tiger styles or tiger thing, the tiger evoked in Filipino martial arts, and Indian martial arts. I mean, you got to consider that the tiger, these are places where tigers lived, and in some places where they still live. And so it was something to be reckoned with. I mean, I don't know how many of your audience has had the opportunity to be out in the mountains where there's a large predator cat. I mean, I've I did some trekking in the Himalaya, and there was a leopard, which they didn't tell us about until we were on the trek. But you know, you're on the mountain, you're kind of thinking, man, you know, if that leopard comes, I'm in a world of hurt. So it's definitely something that figured into the folklore and as this majestic creature, you know, and inspired a lot of martial artists. Of the zodiac, the tiger is the most connected to martial arts. I mean, I think next you would say probably the monkey. There's a lot of monkey style stuff. And that I would say falls out of the Monkey King, Journey to the West mythology. There's also dragon styles, of course, because dragon embodies, there's the symbol of all of China, if you will. And then there's other things like dog styles you hear about, but that's very obscure. Horse dances and horses is certainly uh, foundation building block in Chinese martial arts, but it's not really a style. I mean, I've heard of horse things, but it's not very common. I mean, somebody's thought of something for every style somewhere. I've heard of fleet styles and stuff, but uh, yeah, tiger is definitely the most prominent for sure, and it kind of makes sense, right?
Right? It's Chinese New Year, and the big thing is the lion dance.
Lion dance, yeah, confuses people. Well, you understand straight up. I mean, tigers were all across Asia. Lions were in Africa, so nobody really saw lions. I mean, China had communication with Africa via the Silk Road for millennia, and so travelers had seen lions, and like the works of Marco Polo, the descriptions of them were fantastic. There are stories of emperors getting lions, and giraffes and exotic animals, just like, I don't know, Michael Jackson or somebody. So they existed, but predominantly symbolically. The average Chinese person had no idea, had never seen a lion. There were no zoos, not like that, at least, where you would see a lion. There was no pictures, or the pictures there were like crazy, fantastical. That was the ancient world, right? And so the tiger was very real, even though people probably didn't see them. They might have seen dead ones. They might have had livestock or even friends killed by it. Who knows? So the tiger in Chinese mythology is the king of beasts, and you can tell a tiger because it has the symbol for Wang on its forehead, which are three stripes with a bar down, right? And Wang means king. The lion was this mythical creature, kind of like the dragon or the qilin, even though it was based on something that was very real in Chinese culture back in the day. It was fantastic, right? Which is why Chinese lions look like these crazy dog creatures or whatever. I don't know what they look like, right? They're just so psychedelic. And so they're very different. A lot of Westerners tend to sort of look at the lion and think, well, obviously it's not a lion, so they don't want to call it a lion, even though that's the term we use. They'll call it a dragon. You want to piss off lion dancers? Oh yeah, I love the old dragon dance you did. I mean, being a former lion dancer, I'm just like, oh, well, we're going to sit down and talk about this. So it's more of the lion dance is more based on a mythical beast, right, than this real beast. You just happen to have a name or association to this real creature. And it's very martial arts. That's something I think a lot of people miss about lion dancing, is that the lion was representative of the shifu, of the master, right? The lion head was his representation. And it was a way for him to go out in community and show his Kung Fu skills through his students, right? So the master didn't show, but the students would show, and if the students were good, well, the master's good. And so predominantly when you look at Southern lion dancing, which is the one where it's the big round head and then the cape drape, right? That is expressly designed to show the power of Southern Kung Fu. So all you really see are the stance work, right? The horse stance, the cat stance, the low, the crouching poo-poo stances, crouching stances. You see all the leg work, the kicks. The head is such that when you shake it, right, you can really show your power, your explosive energy, your fating, as they say, because it's got these little pom-poms that are supposed to be the steam on these little springs, and if you shake that head right, it not only looks awesome, but another martial artist can read it and tell where your power is. Both performers have to work without sight, just by feeling sound, because you're looking the wrong way. If you're under the tail, You're all in horse stance, all bent over. You're up, you're looking at the floor. You've got no way to breathe because you're all collapsed. So it's a test of endurance. It's a test of reflexes. You got to feel through the cloth where your head is. And it's an impromptu thing. I mean, in competitions, you'll see people will do these, where they're up on the mukjang, on the high plum power stakes, and do these elaborate forms. That's all choreographed, of course. But in the streets where these were applied, it was improv. And it was a way for stoner, or it was a way for a martial arts school to give their blessing to a new store or a wedding or a festival. It was also a way for that new store, that wedding, who was receiving the blessing, to make sure the martial arts was good, had some talent. My Sisok, my uncle, my Kung Fu uncle who taught me lion dance, was part of the Hong Kong fire department, which had a very intense team because there was sort of a symbolism. Firemen and policemen have really good line dance teams. It was really hardcore, because they have to go to all these sort of government functions and they've got to be on it with a lion. So it's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful art. It's a permutation of Kung Fu that because some people just look at it as the dance. They don't read it. They don't understand the code.
Right. It's an application of Kung Fu that kind of sits outside of the martial application of combat.
Yeah, it's an expression of it that that doesn't quite. We don't give it enough face in a way, because it's really hard to do well.
And
it takes amazing Kung Fu skill.
You've had some pretty wild lion dance missions in your own right.
I did lion dance for the Grateful Dead, which was probably my biggest moment. One of my biggest life moments was lion dancing on the stage with the Grateful Dead. But I think everybody who does line dance, it's always a journey. It's because it's improv. So I remember one of my really dear Kung Fu brothers who actually fought in UFC in the early days. I was telling him, he's a Hong Kong guy, Southern guy. You got to do line dance. You got to do line dance. Like, that's silly. That's silly. And then once he got it under the head and started to do it and understood its relationship to Kung Fu, particularly Hong Kong, he was just like, oh, this is the stuff, man. He got so into it. And so it's one of those delightful moments when you open the door for one of your brothers and they just go whole hog into it, right?
There's a whole discussion to be had about the nature of opening those doors, right? Especially in the context of transmitting culture, moving Kung Fu beyond the borders of China. Its status now is as a much more international phenomenon, where
well, therein lies. That was our mission for 20 years, right?
Oh yeah.
We were always somewhat caged by being, a Kung Fu magazine. We were always in the sports section, never in the New Age section, which I tried to break into for 20 years. There would be glimmers of pop culture. When we did all those movie reviews together, that was there was crossover, and that's expanding. There's many more movies that you can see martial arts influence into their choreography nowadays than there was back in the day. But yeah, I think it's still Kung Fu is still, everybody was Kung Fu fighting. We'll never get away from that song. We'll never go away from that image. The bigger picture of Kung Fu being, an art, by definition, that skill achieved by a lot of hard work and a lot of time. That's a harder concept. Like Kung Fu Tea, Kung Fu Cha. It's the same Kung Fu. It's the same, and that's starting to make headways too in America. But the amount of discipline it takes to understand proper tea service, and that's a skill that takes time and a lot of hard work. And you got to have good Kung Fu in the way you paint, the way you make your comics, right? There's a whole different. It's a different level. But here in America, it's Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. You got to know your roots. And right now, looking at your comic, that's a flower, right? That's a fruit. That's a whole different thing. But and how far back do you want to get into that taproot? Yeah, I mean, you're in the entertainment industry, so you can certainly take license like Shang-Chi or anything, you know. At the same time, I think you you just don't want to pull stuff out of your butt, you know. You want a legitimacy to it, you know, to make it to give it that authenticity, right?